language proficiency test. It is a common standardized method that people use to assess their knowledge or their level in any given language. Many organizations will create their respective tests, and they will find a way to make a good quality test in order to see what level you are in that language. There is a model called CEFR, which stands for the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And that is the most common model that people use to describe what level they are at. And normally they use a letter and a number to tell you what level they are at. So for example, if someone says they're A1, then they are a beginner in that language. And if they're C2 on the opposite side of the spectrum, then they are advanced in the language. And if you want to know exactly what's considered A1 or what's considered a C2, I will provide in the description below. I'll put a link so that you can learn more about what each of those levels are supposed to mean. Even though we have this model, and organizations will try to go off that model to create their exams and try to make it as fair as possible, it's not always the case that just because you take a certain level and you pass that exam, that you're at that level of fluency. It just gives you kind of a general guideline of where you're at and gives you an idea of what your strengths and weaknesses are. That's why I think it's good that over time, organizations will create new versions of their exams to make it more appropriate for a specific given level. And actually, one of the tests that I'll be talking about later in this video just went through a change last year. And at least in my opinion, I think was a good change and will be a better representation of somebody's overall ability in that language. So today is July of 2022. So we have about 6 more months left in the year. So my plan is to try and take 4 language proficiency exams by the end of the year and hopefully pass all 4 of them by the end of the year. And I know that kind of sounds crazy and like overwhelming, but for me, I feel like signing up for these exams is a good way to motivate me to study the language. And everyone has their own reasons for studying a language, whether it's because they want to go to a university, they want to get a job, they want to know their language level, they want to be able to understand K-pop music, they want to be able to overhear a conversation at the next door table, or they want to meet new friends. There's a lot of reasons why you would want to learn a new language and why you'd want to test your proficiency in it. And so for me, I want to be able to know what my level is at, and also I want to be able to meet new people. I love to travel, so knowing languages is a great way to connect with people, meet new people, make friends. So that's my main motivation for learning and getting better with languages. So the 4 exams that I'll be taking is 1, the TOPIK, 한국어능력시험. That's the Korean test. Number 2 is the HSK, 한유시评考试. That's the Chinese exam. Number 3, the JLPT, 일본어 노력시험. And that's the Japanese exam. And then 4 is the DELF, Diplôme d'études en langue française, which is the French exam. And so first, we're going to talk about the TOPIK.
The first test that I plan to take is the TOPIK, which is the test of proficiency in Korean, otherwise in Korean known as 한국어능력시험. The TOPIK exam is offered a few times a year overseas, which just means outside of Korea. And in order to find out more information about test location, date, time, all of that, you have to find your specified Korean embassy or cultural center, and that's who is hosting your exam. So you have to find that information first, and then that's where you're going to register and find out all of your information about location, date, time, all of that. So I'm going to actually show you my process of how I found that information. I'm here on the site called topicguide.com, and this is a site that gave me the basic information of what I needed to know about the exam. So on this page here, this one just tells you what the exam is, how to apply, and the structure of the exam, the different markings for each of the tests. So if you want to learn more about the structure of the exam, you can go further on this page. But if you want to look at the test schedule, you can click this Check Now button, and you can specifically look at your country, and then you will see that there will be a schedule for this year. So right now, most of it's blank. So it has the name of the country and then the name of the city where the test is being held. So right now, for my area, which is San Francisco, US, there's no information right now. But luckily, I was able to get information from the 83rd TOPIK test. So then I was able to find this website. So the place that I have to register for the exam is the Korean Education Center in San Francisco. And as you can see, it gives me all the information I need to sign up for the 84th TOPIK. It tells me the date of the exam, when I need to register, how much, the different test locations, what I need to do for the test day, all of that important stuff. So as you can see, the important thing is this registration period time. I only have 2 weeks to sign up for this exam. So I have to make sure that I remember to sign up on time because they give you very little leeway to sign up for it. So if you guys are planning to take the TOPIK, make sure you're aware of when your registration period is, because I think in Korea, you only get 1 week to sign up for the exam. So make sure you know what your registration period is, which locations are available. After that, once the registration becomes available, then you can sign up.
So since 2014, the TOPIK has a new format. The TOPIK is made up of 2 levels. It is TOPIK 1 and TOPIK 2. And under each TOPIK test, there are sub-levels. So in TOPIK 1, there's level 1 and 2. And in TOPIK 2, there is level 3, 4, 5, and 6. What you do is you sign up for either the TOPIK 1 or the TOPIK 2. You can sign up for both, actually, because generally they offer it, one of them in the morning, and they'll offer the other one in the afternoon. But that's only if you want to be taking like 5 hours worth of tests. But generally people choose one or the other. And when you take, let's say, TOPIK 1, you are actually going for both levels, both level 1 and 2. So you will be given questions in both levels, and then based on how you answer the questions, which ones you get right, which ones you get wrong, then you will see if you pass for level 1 or if you pass for level 2, or if you didn't get enough points, you won't get a passing grade at all. You won't get either level. So you do need a minimum amount of points in the TOPIK 1 to at least get level 1. The TOPIK 1 is only just reading and listening. There is no writing involved, just reading and listening. It's more conversational based. And the test is about an hour, 45 minutes. As long as you get the amount of points that you need to get either level 1 or 2, then you've passed. If you want to go for level 2, for TOPIK 2, which, like I mentioned, has levels 3, 4, 5, and 6, you just need more points to pass. TOPIK 2, you need to not only do the listening and the reading, but you also have to write. So even if you're really just trying to go for level 3 in the TOPIK 2, you have to be prepared to answer all the questions, even for the higher up levels, and deal with writing, which is why, for me, I think I'm not going to take the TOPIK 2 because I'm not, I think, at that level where I'm confident in my writing skills, and I feel like it will just be too overwhelming of a test. So for me, I plan to take the TOPIK 1, and hopefully I can get level 2 in that test. Your scores are valid for 2 years, so that means every 2 years, if you need these test scores for university or you need it for a job, then you have to retake this test. The important thing is you have to make sure you register on time. Like, I only have 2 weeks to do it, so I have to make sure that I do it on time. I think my test is like $45, $50 or so to take the test, so I'm planning to take the TOPIK 1, hopefully get level 2. That is my plan. There are many ways that you can plan to prepare for this exam, and I'm going to show you quickly how I'm preparing for the exam. Because in the TOPIK, they test you both in reading, writing, listening, but they don't test you in speaking, so that is one thing you don't have to worry about. But they do test you in those 3 areas. Make sure that you are well-versed in those 3. Especially if you're going to take the TOPIK 2, you need to be ready for writing. I have this TOPIK 1 book that specifically tells you about the format of what the TOPIK test will look like, and I think this is really helpful to see what the questions will be like, sort of prepare you for the format of the exam. And I think for any exam that you take, getting some book that tells you the format of the exam will make it much easier and less stressful, so you know what to expect. I also have this Sogang 한국어 book, and this is more like a conversational book, reading dialogue, learning grammar, vocabulary. So this is what I'm using this book for. And then I also have a Yonsei 읽기 textbook, which is a reading textbook. And then the last book that I'm using is this writing conversational Korean. So it gives you all these writing prompts, and then you have to write your response in Korean. And it's just a good way for me to start getting in the habit of practicing the writing. So those are the kind of books that I'm using right now, and I'm also using italki and taking lessons like 1 time, 2 times a month, just to make sure that I understand what I'm learning, because I'm self-studying, and ask him any questions I need to make sure that I understand all the points that I'm reading in the books. So hopefully that gives you a better sense of what the TOPIK exam is like.
The second exam I'm going to talk about is the HSK, which is the Chinese language exam, and in Chinese is called the 汉语水平考试. So the HSK, it's generally offered on a monthly basis, and the speaking test, which is called the HSKK, is typically offered every other month. Just depends on your location. And so what you do is you have to find which location is the nearest to you. If you see here, I'm on the goeastmandarin.com, and it tells you kind of step by step of how to register for the HSK exam. The first thing it says is it wants you to create an account and register for the HSK exam. So there's only this site that you can use to register. So you click it, and then it will take you to this website here as it slowly loads. All right, so you can see that there's these different, there's an ad, let's get rid of the ad. All right, so you can see that there's different exams that you can take. So the ones that I'm interested in taking is the HSK and the HSKK. So let's say we choose the HSK first, and we want to, and before we make an account, let's just see how we find our test center. So you say, you know where you're from, what area, so USA for me, and then which test you're looking for, so HSK. And then here you can choose if there's a certain type of test that you want, whether it's internet-based or paper-based. At this point, I kind of will take either. Either one works for me. So then I search. And currently, these are the only locations available in the USA that I can take the exam. So my options are Minnesota, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and I believe this is Maryland. So these are all quite far from me because I live in California. So these are all mostly East Coast based. So if I was going to take this test, I have to plan to travel to one of these places. So depending on which one, like maybe the one that sounds interesting is the Washington, D.C. So you can see here has all the details, and then it shows you all the dates of when the HSK is offered and even the dates for when the HSKK is offered. And then you just click the register now to which one you're interested in. And then once you, let's say with this one, like say I want to take level 3, then I think it just takes you back to the registration page. There you go, where you have to register. And for me, it used to be offered in San Francisco, which would have been really convenient, but unfortunately that site closed down back in 2019. Now it seems like the only options are further central or East Coast. So I'd have to travel to take the exam. So I need to make it worth it and make sure that I'm as prepared as possible if I'm planning to travel for this exam. So in terms of the format of the exam, this is the test that has changed within the last year. It used to be that the HSK was only 6 different levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 being the easiest, 6 being the hardest. The company realized that it wasn't the most accurate representation of people's levels, that even people passing level 6 weren't actually having fluent conversations in Chinese, even though that's the highest level. So they redid the structure. So now instead of it being out of level 1 through 6, it is out of level 1 through 9. And the way that they've organized it is as follows. So they have the beginning level, the intermediate level, and then the advanced level. In the beginning level, they have bands 1, 2, and 3. In intermediate, they have 4, 5, and 6. And in advanced, they have 7, 8, and 9. For 7, 8, 9, you specifically only have to worry about those levels if you're trying to go research, very academic. That specific level is asking for people who are interested in going to a university where all their classes are going to be in Chinese, right? They're going to do academic research. They're going to be a professional translator, interpreter, right? So for me, I'm just looking for conversational. So for me, up to level 6 is as far as I really want to go. And in regards to this new system, the levels have actually gotten much harder. So levels 1 through 6, the old version versus the new version, is very different in terms of how much vocabulary they want you to know and how much grammar they want you to know. In this graph here, where it says B1 to B5 aren't corresponding to the original HSK 1 to 5, they're also much harder. So for example, it says HSK 1, they only required 150, and now they're asking you to know 500 words for HSK 1, the beginning level. So that's an extra 350 words. So you can tell, and that as you go further down, the expectation gets higher and higher. That's why it's important to see what the new test format is like so that you can prepare for it appropriately. Besides the listening, the reading, and the writing, they also now include in this new format Hanzi writing, so character writing, and then also translation. So being able to translate, from Chinese to English, vice versa. So they didn't have that before. And the other new change is they're now requiring writing from the very beginning. It used to be at a certain point, as you got to the harder levels, then they expected you to write. But now from the very beginning, they expect you to write. Starting in 2022, if you are planning to take anything higher than the HSK 2, so if you're going to take HSK 3 or higher, you are required to take the speaking exam, the HSKK, which that wasn't required before. It was just an optional exam that you could take before. Now, if you're going to take a certain level or above, it's required. But you can take both exams on the same day if you want to. The length of the exam varies. So like the beginning level is like half an hour to the hardest exam is 2 hours. And mind you, right now, even though they have this new format, they're still rolling it out. It's going to take them a few years to actually bring it out to all the different test centers. So right now, places are still doing the level 1 through 6, the old version. But they're going to, over the years, they're going to transition to the new level 1 through 9. So kind of get ready and expect that coming up in the future. For me, I'm planning to take the HSK3, at least the old version, what's considered the HSK3. I know there's not any current materials out there for the new bands, but when you look at the research, people just say to continue using the current textbooks that are out there for the HSK. So I'm currently using the textbook and the workbook for HSK3. And these are like the standard books that you use to know what vocabulary words you need to know, what grammar points you need to know, all of that. So like I said with the TOPIK, it's very helpful to have a book that's specifically about the exam so you know the format and you'll be less stressed knowing kind of what the type of questions are going to be on the exam and be as prepared for it as possible. I'm also signed up with a free Chinese online course from Peking University. I will put it in the description below. All you do is just make an account and on your own time, you complete an 8-week program where you're learning about, vocabulary, grammar. It's a little bit more interactive. There's some homework assignments, but it's all online and it's all free. So that sounds good to me. So it's just a good way to keep practicing my language skills. So there's a website where you can get a general sense of what level you think you are. So as you can see, there's level 1, there's level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, based off the old levels. And you click on the characters that you recognize that you can read and understand. And then based off of what you click, then it will tell you what level you are. So when I took it, it said I was about a level 2. So that's why I'm trying to go for level 3. Mind you, kind of take this information with a grain of salt, but it's just kind of gives you a good sense of where you're at in terms of recognizing characters, what you're able to say in Chinese or what you don't recognize. So I think this is just another method of being able to practice your reading skills, recognition, all of that. So hopefully that gives you some good information, good tidbits on how to prepare for the HSK. The third exam that I plan to take this year is the JLPT, which is the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, otherwise known as 한국어능력시험. So, the JLPT is a good friend of mine, maybe not in the best way, but it is a good friend of mine because I have a folder here. I have a folder that's labeled JLPT. And the reason why I have this is kind of a sad story, but I have taken the JLPT multiple times. It's the only proficiency test I've attempted to take. I tried taking the level 3 test when it was the old format, level 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when the new tests came out, the new format, which was N1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I tried taking the N2. And I never got enough points to pass. So I have lots of papers here that show you my skills with taking this test. And so I really I'm more motivated to take this test and pass it. So I have one N2 test where I got a 41 out of 60 on the reading, a 35 out of 60 on the listening, and I got a 15 out of 60 on the language knowledge, like the vocabulary and grammar. So I missed passing the N2 by 4 points. 4 points. So that's why I am motivated to pass specifically the N2 this year. I'm so close, and yet I still haven't gotten it with the amount of times that I've tried. So I'm hoping for the best. So with the Nihongo Noru Kishiken, there used to be 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 was the easiest, and then 1 was actually the hardest. But what happened was level 2 and 3, there was such a big gap in between of how much knowledge you were supposed to know that they ended up making a test in between. So now they have levels N1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So N3 became that middle test in between the old 2 and 3. So I have taken the N3 before. I have taken the N2 before. So my plan is to try to pass the N2. My testing location is normally San Francisco, and I'm hoping that it will be there this year because last year, during like the height of the pandemic, they actually only offered it in Los Angeles, and I really didn't want to travel to Los Angeles at that time. So I'm hoping that as we get closer, then I'll find out if they actually have the spot open for San Francisco. I really hope so. And normally the test is offered only once a year in the United States. So it's normally offered in December, the first Sunday of the month. And as I mentioned, in terms of the test, there's the grammar vocabulary in one section, reading in another section, and then listening in another section. So there's no speaking and there's no writing in the JLPT. So, based off of which exams you take, it's good to know which exams include writing, which exams include speaking, right? So that you can prepare yourselves appropriately for each exam. So the JLPT actually is easier in that regard. I kind of wish they had a speaking portion because I feel like that actually will better assess where you're at with the language than just taking a standardized test. The test scores are valid for life, but depending on if you're trying to go to school, university, for a job, then they may ask for an updated version or have a version that's within a certain amount of years. So you have to, depending on what you're using it for, it may need to be valid within a certain amount of time. So you have to make sure you check with whichever organization that you're trying to get into. So now I'm going to show you on here how you sign up for the JLPT. So if you go to this site here, which is the jlpt.jp/E for the English, I'm assuming. So if you go all the way down, you'll see that there's a list of overseas test site cities and local host institutions. So we can click that. We click North America, and then you choose, which area you're from. So for me, USA, and then you click this American Association of Teachers of Japanese. So that's the host institution. So I click that, and then it will take you to this page, which it will show you the information. So based off of what this says, so this is definitely different than it was before. It used to be that registration was all done at one time. See where it says registration will be conducted between August 10th and September 13th. But here it says, in order to avoid stress to our online system, that they're doing it in a staggered sequence. So that's new. They weren't doing this before. So this is important to know because I remember test sites were filling up very fast, especially in San Francisco. So whatever test you're going to go for, you need to be aware of what day your registration opens up. So for me, level N2 is going to open Friday, August 12th at 9 Pacific time. Conveniently, that's, my time zone. So I need to make sure that I register starting that day. And then let's see. We have the JLPT test sites. So here it shows the test sites, the city, the location, and then once it comes up, it will give you the information. And then you'll see, there's the one in Los Angeles, California. And then, oh my God, that's so cool. Okay, cool. Oh my God. They brought the San Francisco site back. I hope they keep it because that would make it much more convenient if it's in San Francisco. But this is my hope I can take it here. If I can't, maybe. Oh, well, they also have Monterey. I could go to Monterey as well. So at least I have some options to choose from in terms of places in California I can take the test. And then on this page too, it tells you, the different tests, how much they cost, the description of each level. So like what you need to know. So this kind of gives you all that information you need to know, what to be aware of for the exam. Because I have taken it so many times, I have a lot of resources. So, and I'll show you some of them. I can't actually show you all of them because I have a lot. So in terms of the JLPT, like I mentioned before, you can buy the specific test booklets where you learn about the format of the test. And even for the JLPT, they have it separated into sections. So like you have one book that's on, reading, one book that's on grammar, one book that's on listening, one book that's on vocabulary. So, I actually thought that these were very useful books to have. The ones that I actually found to be more useful even though they're all in Japanese, by the way, are these Kanzen master books, also separated by topic, like reading, listening, grammar, all of that. But these actually are very useful in terms of practicing the skills that you need for the exam. So I definitely recommend the Kanzen Master for studying for the JLPT. Other than those books, I also have reading books that I bought. So I have like Sogakusei type of reading books, and then I have a little bit more advanced books as well to practice my reading. And then I also have like these little test booklets where they just ask you some quick questions, and to kind of test your knowledge quickly. You can easily bring this with you and study some questions. Kind of having a plethora of books is helpful. But yes, I have a lot of JLPT study material, but I'll make sure to kind of list all that information in the description below so that you can have access to all that information. So hopefully that gives you the information that you need to feel more comfortable about signing up for the exam and even preparing yourself for the exam. The fourth and final exam that I plan to take by the end of the year is the DELF, D-E-L-F, and that is the French exam, otherwise known as Diplôme d'études en langue française. And that exam is probably the one I have the least knowledge about. Like, I had to do a lot more research compared to the other 3 exams. My language ability in French is much lower. If you look at my previous video that I uploaded about my French language journey, learning French in 5 weeks, that was my first exposure to French. So in terms of this test, I'm really going for like basic level. Compared to the other tests, I'm trying to go for a little bit higher, but this one is more at the very beginning stage because that's just where I'm at. But I feel like it will be a good way also to push myself and to get myself speaking more and more French. This test is issued by the French Ministry of Education, and the way that you sign up for it, just kind of like with any of these other exams, you have to find where your test location is, and then from there you find out when you need to register, the day of your actual test, all of that. So I'm going to show you, for me, what I have to do. The DELF exam in the US, I found a site here that you see, French-exam.com, and I just had typed into the Google search, where to take DELF exam, California, and this is what popped up. So here you can see that there's all the states here, and it lists to you the name of the organization that hosts the exam. And I believe conveniently they have San Francisco. So they tell you what group is putting this on, where they're located, and then their site internet. So I'm going to go and click on that, and once we get there, we'll go all the way down, and you'll see that there's an exam center where it talks about all the different exams that they offer. So when you click that, you will see, when you go far enough down, you'll see this is the exam that I want to look more into. So I'm going to say learn more. And then basically, depending on which test you're wanting to take, which the one that I want to take is the one that's for the public, for everyone. And I'm specifically going for A1. For DELF, they have A1 to B2, and then you can see the test changes to a different name when you're going for the advanced level. And we'll talk more about that later. So we're going to go here into the DELF A1. And then it just tells you what you need to know, what's expected if you're going to pass A1. And then it tells you what the test is composed of. It has listening, reading, writing, and it has speaking. So this test has everything, and tells you how many points you need to pass. It gives you all that information. And here it's telling me that, this one looks like it already passed, but there is a test coming up at the end of December, and then registration will be in November, which is a little nerve-wracking because the JLPT is, I believe, the day before this day. So we'll see what happens. But that is the goal, is to take this test that's in December. So I have to remember to apply for it in November. And then it tells you the fee. It's $135 to take the exam. Then you basically, when it's time to sign up for the exam, you go back to this place and you sign up for it. As I mentioned before, there are 4 sections for the DELF exam. So it looks at reading, listening, writing, and speaking. You have to be confident in all 4 areas. Even as a basic learner, you need to at least know the basics in each area. So that's why I think it's important to make, because for this exam, you need to know all 4 categories, then to try to prepare yourselves as much as you can for each one. I like that this test offers these 4 sections: the reading, the writing, the listening, and the speaking. I feel like in reality, practically, you're going to need all of those skills. So to really see as accurate as possible where your level is at with the language, I think it is really good that they can incorporate all of those different areas. That's why I kind of wish, like the JLPT, I wish they would offer a speaking session, because I feel like that would make the test more challenging, but I think it would make it more realistic of what level you're actually at if you're able to pass something like the speaking exam, if there was one for the Japanese exam. Each section is worth 25 points. So there's 4 sections, so a total of 100 points, and you need at least 50 points in order to pass the test. The length of the test is about 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours. So you kind of have to prepare yourself accordingly, depending on how much time you have, see how long that you can spend on each section. So like, I think if you look back at that website I showed you, like listening, it only has a certain amount of time for listening, like it has 20 minutes, and then reading is 30 minutes, right? So there's like a time frame for each one. So you have to make sure that you spend your time wisely. And I think that's why it's good to know that information of how long each test is going to be, so you can manage your time wisely. So the other exam that I mentioned to you that I won't be taking, because it's the advanced version of the French exam, which is the DELF, DALF. It specifically tests your advanced abilities in the language, so the C1, C2. So it's using that common European framework model. It has the same grading as the DELF, but what it's expecting out of you is a lot more. So I actually have to look at my notes to remember, because it was the expectation for C1, C2 for this exam is very high. So for example, it still works on the listening, reading, writing, and speaking, but the listening, you listen to one short recording and you won't listen to one long recording. So for the listening portion, you have the short recordings and then you have long recordings. So for the short ones, they're like short 20-second audio files. The long one is a 6-minute audio file that you have to listen to the whole thing, and you have to be taking notes in your head or writing it down of what the conversation is about, so that you can answer the following questions in the exam. They will play the recording twice, but still it is a 6-minute conversation. So it's a lot that you have to keep in your head, or you have to be making sure that you're writing all of that down on the paper. So it really tests your ability to take in the information and to retain it and not get lost within those 6 minutes. Then for the reading section, you have to read a text that's 1,500 to 2,000 words long, and then answer multiple choice questions based off that. So for the writing part, you have to take a bunch of documents that have been summarized, and then you have to write on a given prompt and write 250 words. The last section being speaking. For the speaking portion, you will choose a topic. It's either going to be a humanities topic or a science topic. And then whichever one you choose, you will get 1 hour to prepare your defense on the topic. And then after that, you will defend your position in front of a panel of people. So this exam is actually pretty intense. So if you're going for C1, C2, they have a very high expectations of what they're expecting you to do in all 4 areas: reading, writing, listening, speaking. So you really have to be prepared if you want to be able to pass C1 or C2. Well, I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but I'm just starting with the basics. If I can at least pass A1, that would be my goal for this year. In terms of study material, I've mainly just been using iTalk since I'm a beginner. I've mainly been using italki for French lessons. Truthfully, French is the one language that I still need to get the exam booklet. So like I have it for the JLPT, HSK, TOPIK, but I don't have it for the DELF. So I'm gonna buy a book on Amazon for the DELF exam so I can start slowly preparing for the format of the exam. Hopefully that gives you a sense of how to prepare, how to deal with signing up for the exam, and the ways that I'm preparing for this exam. Thank you all for watching my video. If you like seeing the content I'm making, please like and subscribe to my video, and hope to see you all soon. Bye!